people are not going to return to marriage until you make the institution more fair.
Well, what they'll do is they'll return. Yeah.
Doesn't matter what you say. It doesn't matter what I say. You guys have been preaching marriage for a decade.
Yeah.
And the rates of marriage have still been going down. Why? Because the cost is too high and the quality of women is too low.
Pearl Davis continues to make shockwaves online for some very controversial takes.
I don't think men or women are equal until we do the equal work. Go apply to be on the oil rig.
What have we really accomplished? We don't do the majority of hard jobs in society. 1 out of 3 of us has had an abortion. 1 out of 4 of us has an STD. 90% of us have been on birth control.
So in 2024, marriage is a bad deal for men.
So in this video, she debates with Michael Knowles about whether the institution of marriage has failed men or whether men should just bow out of it completely. Now, she does identify some important things in what she says, but I think her commentary and her suggestions expose just how dangerous the red pill community can be for young men. My name is Emmanuel. Welcome back to Faith Talks, where we talk faith. Let's dive into the video.
And the problem is that the state is the legal enforcement arm.
Well, that's by definition.
Correct. So there's no way for a man to get married in 2024 without being entered into the state contract.
But that's always.
And so I understand, but I understand men's hesitation when the quality of women has gone down.
But what if,
I don't tell men not to get married or like what to do. I think every man has to decide for themselves. But I don't think you're going to win a lot of support, or I think you have to understand the problem in order to come up with a solution.
So you are telling men, at the very least, you're observing that it is not advisable today in 2024 to get married.
I would say that every man has to pick for himself. But I think objectively, if me and you sign a contract and one of us is paid to leave, you would never sign that business deal. You would never sign it.
I did, right? If you're saying that's the state of marriage now, I did get married, therefore I did sign it.
Okay, well, congratulations, but I think a lot of men are going to be hesitant to do that.
And you're saying it's rational for them to be hesitant.
Yeah.
So you're saying it's advisable,
not advisable.
But rational.
Every man, like, okay, I'll give you an example. I'm not here, I think men have had enough of women telling them what to do. I'm not telling men to do anything, but I think your situation is going to be completely different than the average Joe making $45,000 a year. If your marriage goes south, you have the money to afford lawyers.
I have the money, but I'm going to lose half money.
What?
But
do you think you're in the same position as the average man making $45,000 a year? The answer is no.
No, but I don't.
The answer is no.
I don't think it's because of my money, though. You know what I think it's because, well, look, when I got married, I didn't have a lot of money, but now I have more money. But I think there's a bigger distinction here, which is I am of a religious view and practice that does not recognize the reality of divorce. Not only do we discourage it, I'm a mackerel snapping papist, a member of the Catholic faith.
I'm Catholic too.
You're Catholic also.
I'm also Catholic.
So, marvelous news.
Yeah.
We do not.
And Catholics are not immune to divorce. I have seen it. I've seen people getting married for the second time. They still get communion, and the number of annulments is going up.
That's not licit.
The number, but
that's
they
a grave
do. But that's
sin
the no. But I know. But it doesn't matter because it happens all the time.
But you can.
And so it totally.
I see someone who calls himself.
We have a record number of annulments this year in the Catholic Church. You cannot. The Catholic Church is getting more. You see the Pope. And I think we could agree on this stuff.
So in this video, we're not going to talk much about the fact that they both are Catholic and the Catholic gospel is a false gospel that's based on works and not exclusively faith in Jesus Christ. We're just going to focus on marriage. So Pearl's main argument is that men are not getting married because the state incentivizes divorce and favors women, and because the quality of women has gone down, so there are less women for the men to date. And hearing her description, it reminds me of the way that woke Karens talk about race to black conservatives. And what I mean by that is you've got somebody, in those instances, you've got like a leftist white woman talking to a black conservative about how black people are oppressed. And then the black conservative is like, well, no, that's not necessarily the case. And she's like, no, yes, it is. And every single disparity that you see boils down to the one issue of racism. when I listen to this conversation and see Pearl talking to Michael Knowles, you've got a woman telling a man who did enter this covenant union saying marriage is a good thing. And she's saying, no, marriage is not a good thing for men. And the reason it's not a good thing for men is purely because the state and the quality of women are working against men, and there's nothing, all of the problems are outside of their control. Like, that's ultimately what she's saying. Now, me speaking as a young man, yes, I can admit and accept that when we look at the divorce laws in many places, I'm in the UK, in the US, it doesn't look great. However, if what you're going to say is because divorce, which is horrible and disgusting, happens, we're then going to discourage men to marry, or say that marriage is not ideal or beneficial for men, then why don't we say people get into car crashes, so we shouldn't drive? People die in plane crashes, so people shouldn't fly planes. We don't say that because we recognize that, yes, there are those risks, but there are significant benefits to pursuing that. And in the same case with marriage, yes, there are risks of divorce, but those risks can be mitigated, and there are incredible blessings of marriage. This is me speaking as someone who is married, right? As a young man who is married. And what I understand, why I think this is dangerous is because when you put all of the focus on these issues, men not marrying, and it's purely because of the state and purely because of women, you end up creating a generation of victims, of men who literally just see themselves as victims of the world outside of them and become resentful and bitter. And let me tell you something, resentful and bitter men are dangerous, very, very dangerous, and not in a positive way, very dangerous. And we don't want to do that. The reality is there are so many factors involved in why men are not marrying. Some of them will include, the quality of women or the values of our culture, but also some of it will include men watching porn at a young age. Some of it will include men not feeling confident to take risks and to step into leadership roles. Some of it will include feminism taught in school. Some of it will include absent fatherhood in many communities. There are so many reasons, but the facts are marriage is overwhelmingly good for men. If we just look at it on a sociological point of view, married men are more likely to earn more, according to several studies. I saw one recently from the Federal Reserve Bank of St. Louis showing that men married at 25 earned about 20% more than unmarried men. According to Harvard, married men live longer than unmarried men. According to the Institute of Family Studies, men who have ever been married, including divorced men, are happier than men who have never been married. According to William Farrell, the author of The Boy Crisis, men who have children with women out of wedlock are 40% more likely to not be in that child's life within 4 years or in 4 years' time. So what that means is, if you want to live longer as a man, be happier as a man, earn more as a man, and have a higher chance of being in your kid's life as a man, get married. So marriage has significant benefits. And when we look at the people whose marriages have broken down, without any context, by the way, not knowing what happened in those marriages, and then say, because of the risk of that, men shouldn't get involved in this, we create a generation of victims that miss out on the blessings and the responsibility and the purpose that marrying and building your household brings. Now, that doesn't mean that there aren't serious things that need to change in our culture, in laws, to make marriage more attractive. And I do agree, the state has worked constantly over the past couple of decades to work against marriage. But let's have a listen to some of Pearl's suggestions to how to solve this, because again, I think they actually cause more damage to young men than good.
We agree that modern dating is challenging, but I guess...
So what I would say to switch things, I think men shouldn't vote for either party, because neither party is taking their issues seriously. I mean, where is the mandatory DNA testing? You know, I mean, people differentiate.
I would not
on
like
these
mandatory.
People that, well, around 5% of men, up to 30. I mean, it's disputed. I don't want to go back and forth all day, but a significant number of men are raising children that are not theirs. You know,
there's a line in I think it's the Odyssey of where the son of Odysseus says, "It's a wise man who knows his own father." It's true. It's been true for a long time.
Okay, well, I don't know what that has to,
Well, you raised the question of paternity, and I'm saying this has been a longstanding trope in the Western tradition. Go back to the earliest days.
But my point is they're not taking men's issues seriously. I don't think either party is. So I think really if it was up to me, I would say men don't vote until one of the parties starts taking you seriously. Sure. I think the left should try to buy him. Not buy him, but if Biden came out tomorrow and said, hey, we're going to make divorce and family court more fair. We're going to we're going to do mandatory DNA tests. You might disagree with that.
I wouldn't like that. I find that to be quite disrespectful to the institution of marriage.
Well, I think it's more disrespectful that women are lying to men about paternity. And that's a real problem.
Sure.
So
deceitful women, it's a problem throughout history.
Right. And even if it's 2%, 1%, that's 1 out of every 100 guys. That's a real issue. And there's no penalty for women doing it, even though it's fraud.
Sure.
And so until the right and the left start taking men seriously when it comes to their issues, I think men should bow out. But this is Pearl's world.
In Pearl's world, again, so it's confusing because you say I don't ever tell men what I think they ought to do, but you just said I think men should bow out.
I think that would be a strategy. Sorry.
Right, but you say the same kind of thing when you say I think men ought to wait until the laws change before they get married.
Every man has to decide for himself.
You just told men what to do when it comes to voting.
Every man has to decide for himself what he does in his personal life. I think a good strategy could be that men walk away until the laws change. I think it's fair. I think that's a good strategy. There are other ones. Maybe you could come up with some. You guys are one of the largest, political media organizations. Well, but I think a better strategy for you guys would be to maybe start catering, because I don't really think banning no-fault divorce would really change much. The culture is what it is.
Would change a ton. When they introduced no-fault divorce in 1969, I think it was, in Canada, the divorce rates shot up 500% within 2 years. Ending no-fault divorce. First of all, no-fault divorce wasn't even recognized in liberal New York until 2010. That change alone, it wouldn't solve the problem, but it would go a long way towards solving the problem.
That generation, a lot of them were separated anyways.
Separation is one thing. Divorce is quite another. Because that would mitigate all the problems you're describing.
I would be for it. I just don't see that getting passed anytime soon.
I don't see any of these laws getting passed. That's why I'm telling men don't put off your life and put off having a family until the laws get passed.
Well, I think we would have a lot better chance of getting them passed if that was the number one issue you guys were talking about. If that was the number one issue.
It is. I don't think I'm exaggerating.
Okay.
It might be the number one issue I've talked about. I mean, I was just at CPAC and I got in all sorts of trouble for saying that the way that people describe marriage these days is wrong, and marriage is a lifelong union between a man and a woman.
Right, but you would agree it's not how it's practiced today.
It is how it's practiced by the people who have
Would you agree
marriages.
It's not how it's practiced today, not in the special religion, but by and large?
Again, when you say special religion, it seems to me you're trying to marginalize the Catholic faith or other faiths.
Okay, so Pearl's advice there is that men should bow out of, I think she said there, bow out of marriage. It sounded that way, but I think later on in the podcast she explained she meant bowing out of voting. But either way, men should take a back seat in some capacity until the laws change regarding marriage. Now, there's two things that need to be separated here. Yes, there are problems with the legal situation. There's a problem with the laws regarding marriage. Yes. But what does the individual man do about his life? Because even with these issues in the state, you have to make a decision about how you live your life. And the fact of the matter is, marriage is overwhelmingly positive for the men who enter into it and, hear this, and commit to it. Michael Knowles says that marriage is a lifelong union between a man and a woman. Paul asks him, would you agree that's not being practiced today? It's not being practiced today by many people, but it also is being practiced today by many people. And I'm grateful to God to be able to say I'm one of those people that I'm in a lifelong union with my wife, and we understand the meaning of marriage. And a lot of these issues in all divorces, and actually with a lot of people who are scared about entering into marriage, it comes down to a fundamental misunderstanding of the purpose and meaning of marriage. And marriage was invented, marriage was a thing, was an institution, before the United States recognized it, before the United States was a thing, before the United Kingdom, where I live, was a thing, before Western Christendom was a thing. Marriage has been from the dawn of time. And that means that the meaning of marriage is something that transcends the laws, and the purpose of marriage and its benefits will be there regardless of what the laws are. So for the individual man, how do you make that decision? What is the meaning of marriage? And I think the best place to answer that is to dive into the scriptures. Right there at the beginning, Genesis chapter 1, verse 26, God said, let us make man in our image. So the purpose of man is to bear the image of God and to enjoy him, to enjoy covenant relationship with God. And we see, cool, God created man in his image. In the image of God, he created them. Male and female, he created them. And after God had made Eve from Adam's side, from his rib, he says, a man shall leave his father and his mother and hold fast to his wife. So a man holds fast to his wife. The two become one flesh. What does that mean? Well, it means so many things. First, in the first instance, it means that the man and the woman become one flesh sexually. They physically join together and become one flesh. But it also means that the man and the woman, from their loving union, their covenant love union, create a child, which is literally one flesh. It's literally two people bringing their DNAs to make one flesh in that child. So the purpose of marriage is a lifelong commitment, lifelong covenant between a man and a woman for the purpose of sanctification, of learning to love and growing in love and growing in Christ-likeness, and also for procreation. So all of the natural desires that we have, the desire for intimacy, the desire for children, these desires that whether the state makes divorce the most attractive thing or not, these desires that we still have, they are best found in a marriage. So I agree with Pearl when she says that the marriage laws in many places, the divorce laws, they need to change. No fault divorce is of the devil. I agree with you. But if because of that, your advice to men is simply to just back away from the institution, then you're causing even more problems for those men, because then they will experience that loneliness. They will be seeking relationship. They will be seeking stability. They will want to have children, and they won't have the right context or environment for it. And we don't want to create a generation of victims who just look at the problems outside and just look at the state and the world around them with resentment, instead of just focusing on what is within your control. Marriage is not just like a lottery where you buy a ticket and you have no idea whether you're going to win or not, and there's nothing you can do to affect the result. The marriage is where both people commit to one another. In fact, even when there isn't a dual commitment, the marriage is where one person at least commits. And I'd say when the husband leads in that commitment, are significantly more likely to flourish, where the husband is following God's word in the scriptures, where the husband is loving his wife like Christ loved the church, as Paul says in Ephesians 5, where he's discipling his wife. Those marriages, they will flourish. But I think one of the worst things you can tell young men is it's all their fault, and until they do things, you stay where you are and don't get married. The best thing to say is, look, understand that things suck, but this is for your good. So roll up your sleeves, find a wife, and get to building your marriage and building your home. If you like this video, check out this one. I know it will bless you. I hope you've been blessed by this video, and I will see you in the next one. Peace.